You remember when you got her? You had hours and hours to just drive and dream. You spent your Saturdays fixing whatever needed fixing just to keep her running right. 20 years later, isn't it time you two got reacquainted? When you're ready, we're here. Because at LMC Truck, we know that while time may have passed, your passion for her never faded. Get her back on the road where she and you belong.
Now you're watching Gearz, brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, of all of the iconic Jeep vehicles built over the years, the 80s Scramblers have got to be some of the most unique because they took the front end of a CJ7 and then they lengthened the wheelbase and put on a little tiny pickup bed. Unfortunately, it was a little ahead of its time, which means original ones like this are pretty sought after by collectors and enthusiasts alike. And it's because of that popularity the Jeep decided they wanted to come out with a new version of the Scrambler and call it the Gladiator. Now, only time will tell if these will ever become collectible like those are, but the idea of taking something old and making it new, that's not a new concept. It's been around a long time. It's pretty much what we do as hot rodders, but the way you do it and the direction you take with it, that's the challenge. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, what we have here is an all-original CJ8 Scrambler with no rust and no damage. Let me repeat that. No rust and no damage. That's like impossible. This is like the greatest barn find ever. It's just well worn and had a bad engine, an engine that we have already pulled out. And that brings up the question, what do you do now? Do you take it back all original? Do you slap in a V8 and put big axles and paint and just go crazy with it? Or is the answer somewhere in the middle there? Well, they would all be cool, but really the only person that can answer that is you, the person that owns it and is going to build it. And most people, they just want something that they can drive every day and enjoy. And that doesn't necessarily mean you got to pull it all apart and do a ground up on it. You just need to do the right things and do them well. Now, like I said before, the biggest problem with this Scrambler is that the engine was blown. So we made a call to S&J Engines and got a replacement crate engine for it. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at this going, oh man, why not a V8? Well, that was tempting, believe me. But based on the way we're going to use this vehicle and the direction we're going with it, the 258 straight six is going to give us plenty of power. And this is really affordable, especially compared to a V8 swap. Also, S&J's been doing engines for about 45 years, so they know a thing or two about building engines. Here's what you get. They start with a seasoned block and then run it through the machine shop to bore, hone, and align everything until it's perfect. Then they fill it with new components like pistons and rods and bearings. The head is machined and surfaced for superior sealing and then filled with new valve train components, and a new cam and timing set makes sure that those valves do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. This results in an engine that is not just a replacement for stock, but an improvement. It also comes with a new oil pump, some break-in oil, a complete Felpro gasket set, and even a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. What it doesn't come with, though, is the valve cover, the oil pan, the timing cover, the exhaust, the intake, the carburetor, the accessories, that kind of stuff. So the first thing we need to do is pull everything off this engine that we're going to reuse, clean it up, and put it on the new engine. that'll be a problem. Okay, once you have everything disassembled, now you get to decide what you're going to keep and what you're going to throw away. And first is your hardware. Hopefully you've been marking all your hardware as you took it apart, but you also need to look it over real close because you do not want to reuse any old nasty hardware. That's just crazy. This is cheap stuff, easy to replace. Now's the time to do it. Now, obviously, we are going to reuse this valve cover, but we're not going to reuse any hoses or belts. No matter how good they may look, once things have sat for a while, it's just better to replace them. Now, when it comes to your brackets and pulleys and sheet metal, you might take a look at this and go, oh man, I got to replace all this stuff. It looks terrible. Well, if you'll spend a little bit of time cleaning this stuff up and painting it, you'll be shocked how good this stuff will look. And we're going to show you how to do that here in just a minute. So you really don't need to replace this stuff. Now, as far as your mechanical parts, that's a little different story. Electrical components like alternators and starters, those go bad over time just sitting. So they may get you down the road for a little while, but they're probably going to go out on you. I would recommend replacing those. Distributor, yeah, kind of the same thing. You can probably put new wires on it and get you down the road, but I would recommend replacing it. Your mechanical parts like water pump and fuel pump and power steering pump, the seals in those go bad over time and they start to leak. Once again, might get you down the road for a little while, but you're probably going to wish you replaced them, so now's a good time to do it. Now, anytime your oil pump is oozing something like a cappuccino goo, that means your engine had some problems. Obviously, this engine had a blown head gasket or a cracked block or something because there was water getting in the oil. Fortunately, a new oil pump comes with a new engine, so we're good there. Now, as far as your intake and carburetor, there's no reason in the world you can't reuse those. You just need to clean everything up, and you need to check the intake for any cracks or damage, and if it checks out, go ahead and reuse it. As far as your carburetor, once again, anytime something sits, things dry out and quit working right. So no matter how good it looks, you need to rebuild it. Now, when it comes to exhaust manifolds or headers, once again, there's no reason you can't reuse these as long as you check them. Make sure there's no cracks in the flanges or in the pipes or tubes, and if it checks out, paint it up, reuse it, it'll look like new. Now, when it comes to your clutch, let's look inside this bell housing. You notice there is a lot of oil in there. Now, that can all be cleaned up and reused, but what you don't want to reuse is that throwout bearing. That needs to be replaced. And when it comes to your clutch, the same thing applies. Even though the clutch might look good, once they sit, it's just cheaper to replace them, and it's a good idea. Now, when it comes to the flywheel, most of the time those can just be resurfaced and reused. Just make sure you do have it resurfaced if you're putting a new clutch in. Don't skimp on this. Also, you need to check the teeth of the ring gear. If you got damage on there, you need to have that replaced, and most machine shops can replace the ring gear when they resurface the flywheel. If you don't want to mess with it, just replace it. To remove stubborn grease and grime, a parts cleaner will really come in handy. However, if you don't have one, some degreaser and a stiff brush will get the job done too. Oh, that's nasty. To take off old paint or rust, a blasting cabinet's a great tool to have. However, if you don't have access to one, you can get a similar result using a wire wheel or a scuff pad. Now, once the parts are cleaned up, a coat of paint will make them look like new again. Now, for brackets, you probably want to stay away from gloss paints and use semi-gloss, textured, wrinkle, or hammer tone paints because they hide imperfections and they really look good. All right, once everything is cleaned up and painted and dry, you're ready to start putting it all back together. And you can see what a difference this detailing step really makes. I mean, we've got parts here we actually want to put on an engine like that. And this isn't some high dollar thing either. We did all of this using Rust-Oleum spray paint that you can pick up at your local auto parts store or Walmart. Fortunately, there are companies like Gardner-Westcott that have complete engine hardware kits available, so you don't have to hunt for the right bolts at the hardware store. Now, first thing we're going to do is put on the timing cover and the new water pump. And once again, if your hardware is bad, replace it. All right, moving to the bottom of the engine, we're going to deal with the oil pump and the oil pan. And hopefully your oil pump is going to bolt right in place and be perfect. But you need to be prepared to deal with some issues in case it doesn't. For example, this is the new oil pump that came with the engine. And notice the difference in the location of the pickup tube compared to the original pump. There's almost a ½ inch difference here. Now, I know that doesn't seem like much, but those Jeep oil pans are very specific, and if you move that pickup tube that much, it's going to hit the oil pan and it's not going to allow the pan to seal down on the block correctly. Yeah, a big problem. Fortunately, there's some simple solutions. You can go to the auto parts store, try to find the right pump, or you can get a kit and rebuild your original pump, or you can modify the location of the pickup tube so it fits the oil pan. The motor mount brackets, dipstick, and fuel pump round out the lower assembly. All right, back up on the top, we are ready for the exhaust and the intake. And it's hard to believe those are the same nasty pieces that we started with, especially that header. But it's amazing what you can do with a little cleanup time and some high temperature paint. We'll finish up with the valve cover, the brackets, and the accessories. And this thing's starting to look like an engine again. We're also going to upgrade to an MSD distributor, plug wires and coil to handle the fire, and a Holley Sniper fuel injection to handle the fuel. Moving to the rear, we're going to install a new Hayes clutch, pressure plate, and release bearing to our newly resurfaced flywheel. And then cover it up with the freshly painted bell housing. Now all we have to do is bolt it to the transmission, drop it in the Jeep, and we're ready to go. But before we do that, take a close look at what we started with and what we have now. What we've got here is a brand new 258 fuel-injected engine ready to rock and roll.
And now, the Gladiator Search and Rescue build, powered by Bestop.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz. It is time for an update on our Search and Rescue Gladiator build. And today we're going to be dealing with one area that a lot of people don't like on these newer Jeeps, and that is the grill. Because first of all, they're just plastic. Then they kind of bow out here in the front, and you got big gaps along the sides, and they're just not very rugged. Especially when you compare them to the old CJ front ends or the old classic Gladiator front ends from those 60s pickups. Now that would be a cool front end to put on this Jeep, but that's impossible, right? Well, not necessarily, because this is Gearz, and that is a new front end for the Jeep JT Gladiator. Check it out. This comes from Innovative Auto Creations, and as you can see, it's only 3 pieces, but it will completely transform the front end of your JT or JL Jeep for the better. Now, as you can see, we have a fiberglass nose piece that bears a striking resemblance to the old 60s Kaiser trucks or the military variant, the M715. You got a mesh grill in place, you got badging, you've got lights. This is a really nice piece. You also have a hood that's not only completely finished on the bottom side, but if we roll this thing over, you got a lot of really cool stuff. So let's get this in place and see what it looks like. The stock grille just pops off and once again reminds us how cheap and flimsy it is. We'll also remove the lower bumper plastic filler panels. And finally, the lower hood latches. The new fiberglass nose section looks so different you would swear there is no way that this is going to fit in the stock location. But Innovative did a fantastic job of utilizing the stock mounting points, and it just slides in place and fastens with the original fasteners. The sides of the nose slide right up to the original fenders and bolt on with the lower hood latches, making this look like a factory original part. Also notice how the gaps are gone and everything fits nice around the fenders and around the lights. That's not usually the case with the replacement fiberglass panel. The hood is even easier because all you have to do is transfer all the latches, the weather stripping, and the hardware to the new hood. Also notice that threaded metal inserts are used for strength in the hinge and any other high stress areas. Now it's just a matter of bolting it on. Okay, you've got to admit, this is a huge difference and a huge improvement over that stock grille and that stock hood. And the best part is, once everything's pre-fit like this, it just takes a little bit of light sanding and you'll be ready to paint this stuff. And the transformation will be complete. But this isn't all that we're going to do to this Jeep. No, we can't keep that stock bumper or a lot of other stock stuff. You're just going to have to come back and see what we're going to do to it.
Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
You know, when it comes to tools in the shop, you have your fancy, impressive tools that are full of technology and science. And then you've got your really simple tools, like the vise, which are just made to be beat on. And as cool as all this stuff is, you're going to find that you're going to use a simple tool like a vise far more than you're ever going to use this stuff. So it's important that you get the right vise for the way that you're going to use it, because there is a difference. Let's take a look. Okay, for general purpose use, it is hard to beat a vise like this because they're affordable and they're tough as nails. As you can see, this has the 6.5-inch jaw, which will allow you to easily clamp any kind of straight, square, or flat material in place so you can work on it or grind on it. And it also has an additional jaw here, which is designed to hold round objects, so you can clamp tubing or axles in place and work on those. The wide, heavy-duty base provides a solid foundation for heavy pounding. And most vices come with a rotating base option to help you position the part how you need it. Now, due to the heavy-duty nature of the vise, they are perfect to be pounded on. Matter of fact, most vices have this little anvil area right here that's designed specifically for you to pound on them. The only problem is, you got some limitations here. You can't quite get a full swing from all directions. So if you need more room than this, you may want to invest in some sort of anvil so you can pound on metal to your heart's content. Now, if you need a mobile vise, something that you can move from location to location, there are attachments available to allow you to do just that by pulling out a single bolt. The only drawback to this sort of mounting system is it's not quite as solid as bolting the vise down with the 4 bolts to the tabletop. As the need arises for more precise clamping ability, the quality of the vise goes up as well as the price, with high-end vices looking more like a precision tool than something to be pounded on. But the difference in the metal used and the threading mechanism and the precise clamping ability make these well worth the money if it fits your needs. All right, when it comes to accessories for your vise, there's probably more out there than you realize. For example, you've got these simple rubber covers that slide right over the jaws of the vise and prevent damage to any delicate, fragile parts. If you need more clamping force but still need a soft surface, there are these aluminum covers with this soft foam face that once again slide right over the teeth and are held in place with magnets so you don't damage the part. There's also aluminum covers available that have grooves in them that are perfect for clamping things like brake lines or fuel lines, and once again, not causing any damage. And finally, if you're working with aluminum fittings, there's special jaws available that are designed to hold those fittings in place while you assemble them. You know, I bet there's not a day that goes by that you don't wish you had an extra set of hands to help you in the shop. Well, that's what a vise is. It's that extra set of hands to hold a part in place while you weld on it or grind on it or work on it. That's why a vise is a must-have tool for any shop. Now, what vise do you need? That decision is yours.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Scott Stiles from Ellijay, Georgia, and Scott is an Army vet. So he said he always wanted one of those old Harley military bikes. Now, what you're looking at is a 2005 Honda Rebel 250. This is what he started with, and this is what he did to it. He said he completely disassembled the entire bike, blasted and painted every part of it, And he did all these additional modifications to get the bike to look exactly the way he wanted to. Now, he says that people are in shock when he tells them what it is. I was in shock. I had no idea this was a Honda. He says nobody guesses it right the first time. So Scott, to recognize a project that truly shows how you can take something average and make it spectacular, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. We're going to give you one of these big shears that's great for cutting metal, making brackets, and doing that kind of thing. I'm sure you needed it on that project. We're also, since you're a real gearhead, we're going to give you one of our Gearz t-shirts. And we're also going to give you one of our project planning books so you can keep track of everything you did on that motorcycle or for your next project. Also, we're going to give you a gift card from LMC Truck because you'll be surprised what you can find in that catalog that will even work on that motorcycle. And then finally, we're going to give you one of our Gearz tow trucks so you can tow home your next project. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you want to get in on this, get your project featured on the show, go to the website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into what you're working on. The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation so you can stream any of our episodes commercial-free. Also, don't forget to check us out on Amazon Prime, where you can watch past and current seasons of Gearz and check out our new show, Stacey David's Restoration Series. Now, this series is designed to help you stay on track and navigate the challenges so you can complete the project successfully and keep your sanity. Finally, don't forget to like us on Facebook and Instagram so you can get some behind-the-scenes footage of our weekly web series, Shifting Gears. And if you're a radio person, make sure you check out our new podcast, Tales of a Gearhead. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Hopefully you feel inspired to get out there and start working on something. It doesn't have to be a high-dollar car or truck. It can be something as simple as a Honda 250 Rebel. So get out there, find something, start working on it. We'll see you next time.